Now let's talk about Windows 10. Okay, first up, installing Windows 10. There were 3 non-retail editions. Non-retail means it was sold to a specific market. It wasn't necessarily something you could go just buy on a shelf somewhere. So those were Windows 10 Education, Windows 10 Enterprise, and Windows 10 Mobile Enterprise. The retail editions were Home, Pro, and Mobile. So we've come to expect Home and Pro editions, but they've added a mobile edition of Windows 10. As far as features go, between Home and Pro, we still have the differences of encryption and group policy and being able to log on to a domain with the Pro version that we don't have with the Home version. System requirements are pretty similar to previous versions of Windows, as in 7 and 8, between screen resolutions, disk space, RAM, and having a 1 gigahertz or faster processor. If you want to use the touch requirements of Windows 10, you need to be multi-touch capable. That could be a touch screen, a touchpad, or even a mouse. If you want to upgrade to Windows 10, you got a free upgrade from Windows 7 or Windows 8.1. Who took advantage of the free upgrade to Windows 10? A few of us. I waited till the very last possible second before I did it, so I could make sure that all the drivers and stuff were updated to the point where I wouldn't have any trouble, but that was July 29th of this year, so after July 29th you could no longer get the free upgrade. But they did offer it for quite a while. And here was what that kind of looked like for the free upgrade. It would have this icon, the Windows icon would pop up, and it would keep reminding you can get Windows 10. And it pretty much did the installation for you. I don't know of many people that had trouble with it after it completed, except for the fact that maybe they didn't know the upgrade was going to happen, and maybe they went to go use the computer the next day and got a little bit of a surprise. When you got Windows 10, you went through this kind of pre-installation, let me check to make sure you have all the right specs before we try to upgrade it, and this is what you look like if you had all those right specs. And it would keep your apps, keep your data, which is always nice. But that's what we come to expect in a Windows upgrade. So there was another prompt. You can go through this wizard and it would automatically download the update and install it while the computer stayed on. It would check for the Windows installation to make sure you had a legitimate key. So it was a legitimate copy of Windows before it would do the install. So if you had Starter, Home Basic, or Home Premium, you would be able to get the Home version. If you had Professional or Ultimate, you could get Windows 10 Pro, because we don't have a Windows 10 Ultimate anymore. There wasn't really that many more features to it anyway. From 8.1 to Windows 10, you had about the same. If you had Pro before, you could get Pro again. Some of the things that got removed during the Windows 10 upgrade, so these were things that either were not compatible or they were replaced with something else they thought was better. So Windows Virtual PC with Windows XP mode, they had their own compatibility settings, so they got rid of Windows XP mode. Windows Media Center, gadgets, you can no longer disable updates. When updates want to happen, they just happen, which is sometimes inconvenient, but it's necessary for security purposes. Solitaire, Minesweeper, and Hearts. I remember playing Minesweeper like in the very first edition of Windows. And I still have no idea how to play it. Does anybody actually know?
Not at all!
No idea. Do you know? Are you counting squares where the
square,
bombs will be?
The squares with the numbers is how many bombs are around that one square.
How many bombs are around the square? Okay, that makes a little more sense. They got rid of a few games, but those are available as an app in Windows 10. The USB floppy driver and the Live Essentials OneDrive app, because that was replaced with kind of being integrated into the Windows 10 operating system.
One thing I did notice about the Windows 10 updates is I think the computer kind of learns in a sense. Because like I've noticed my computer is like every time there's an update, it only updates, does the automatic update, when it's determined when I'm not using it.
Oh, yeah.
So it kind of knows your patterns?
Yeah.
So it's sentient?
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
Well,
like,
there's still
they
problems with
ask
that.
you that, there's updates, do you wanna do it overnight, and you just click
yeah, like it determines like when it's most active.
Mhm.
And so when I finally get off of it at 2 in the morning, then it's like, hey, now's a good time to update.
Right, it's our downtime, right?
Exactly.
That's kind of cool. That's a nice feature. That's new.
I have a question.
Uh-huh.
You know when they sell the retail version, it says full retail version,
Mhm.
is we upgrade the full version or just sub part of the, it's the same version still?
I don't know. I don't know what full retail version means.
Cause they said it like, oh, full retail version, like, oh, what it doesn't have then the Windows 3 upgrade, so.
Well, no, yeah, we're using an upgrade, so we didn't exactly get a product box with a key in it. We got an upgrade version, which is not the same as just a fresh install of Windows 10. That's probably what they mean. So if we ever had to redo our computer, we would have to use the product key that came on it and then upgrade again to Windows 10.
Yeah, isn't it?
And it probably would not be free this time.
Yeah, I believe it's.
You-
Can you still get like, if you ask for it, get the key for your free upgrade, or it's just one time and that's it?
I don't know about that. I would assume it's one time and that's
Yeah,
it,
'cause you would do that
unless you could use some sort of program to get the key off and you could extract whatever that key is.
Yeah, 'cause
Maybe
I
you
was-
could go in system
yeah, I remember
properties
it
and
had
get
the
it.
same effect as Windows 8, you can get a key from them. when you
Yeah.
call.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you.
So when you're preparing to install Windows 10, it's going to do an update, back up your data, check out drivers, ask you how you're going to sign in, what kind of account for Windows 10. When you're choosing how you're going to sign in, again, like with Windows 8, we have a local account. We have your Microsoft account where everything's all kind of integrated into the operating system and you're just automatically signed into a bunch of things. Or your Active Directory domain if you're on a domain environment and you've been given a login for that. So here's what the local account looks like. It looks a lot like Windows 8. Here's the local account sign-in screen. You could have your user name and email address and then a custom picture. Installing from the web, there was a web-based setup that gave you different kinds of migration tools. Very, very little interaction. It would just kind of do it all for you. There's the retail packaging and what that looks like. So traditional Windows setup is normally having some sort of CD or something bootable to boot to, and getting that pre-installation environment that we talked about last week, where you got to set up a bunch of different pieces and the UBI, the out-of-box experience. So you could sign in, insert a disk, and run setup. Once you've set up Windows 10, there's some post-installation tasks. So get acquainted with the new GUI. So they did put a start menu back. They also kind of have the apps menu as well. But they put that start menu back because so many people on Windows 8 were like, not having that. You get the user tile, the quick links, and the different tiles to look at. So they've kind of integrated these things together a little bit. You can still have the live tiles and you can still change them, and they can be things that you prefer to see, but you still have the traditional menu where you can go look through and see what applications are installed and open them in that way. The power menu options, if you click on power, you get multiple options: sleep, shut down, restart, download updates and shut down, download updates and restart. It kind of
Update or
contextual
restart.
depending.
Update or restart.
Yeah. There's what they call the all apps list, so you can just sort your apps by alphabetical order, which makes it easy to find things. The File Explorer, remember we don't call it Windows Explorer anymore. Once we get to version 8.10, we call it File Explorer. That sounds like something that might be on the test on Thursday. So this is launched from the taskbar icon where you can view all the files. And it looks a lot like Windows 8 again with all the different components of it, but remember it's called File Explorer here. So Internet Explorer is decades old. It's really, really old. So they decided to create a new and improved version called Microsoft Edge. I'm a Chrome gal. I don't really ever open Internet Explorer unless I have to. So this didn't really affect me all that much. but it is a new web browser. It runs things in full screen. You can have different panes for things you want to read later. You can do what's called web notes, where you can write or annotate on web pages and take notes. Clip out a portion of the page and save it. That would be really helpful if you were doing a research paper or something, you're trying to cite resources. So there were some cool things in Microsoft Edge. The thing that I didn't like about Microsoft Edge, and this is one of the things where nobody would have even noticed their computer went to Windows 10 except for this, it took over the reading of PDFs.
Yep,
Mhm.
I hate that.
And I was like, no, changing it back.
Well, see,
And that's just me.
no matter what you use, Edge, Chrome, Firefox, anything like that, aren't we all Internet Explorers?
Christian church, that's over. I use
One of these
Edge,
days she's gonna
I
kick me
use
out.
Edge just for one reason.
She's gonna kick me out one day.
Here's what the Edge browser looked like. Very light on graphics, very light on text by default. Trying to be a little bit more intuitive in the way that it looks. But it is a stark contrast to me from Internet Explorer. It looks very different. Still have the tab browsing and everything at the top. When it comes to drivers, you should always install drivers from the manufacturer's website if you want the newest, most current drivers. If you have trouble with drivers, after you've upgraded or installed a new version of an operating system, Device Manager is the place where you would go to troubleshoot those things. Roll back to a previous driver, update to a newer one, and we'll talk about that next week when we talk about troubleshooting. You could personalize Windows 10 the same way you could 8. Change the size of items and do your orientation locks, your brightness, your display settings. And that looks like this. We'll be doing that in a lab, going through and changing our display settings. Now they've got kind of things on a slider menu, kind of makes a little bit more sense. On a tablet, it doesn't look that much different, but of course you'd have screen rotation, things like that on a tablet that you might not have on a PC. Yeah, I know. I knew you were going to say something about that. I don't know about this whole monitor thing, but I sure hope we can come to a resolution. No?
That was also pretty good. See, she's getting on board with me.
Advanced display settings, color calibration, the way that your type looks, the size of the text. A lot of this stuff kind of falls under ease of access stuff. If you're like me and you have really, really poor vision, you probably don't want the biggest resolution available because then you can't read anything on the screen. But that's just me.
But that depends, let's say, on your, what's it called, video card.
It does. The resolution is determined by your video card, yes. The ease of access menu, we used to call this accessibilities in previous versions of Windows. But if you were hearing or seeing impaired, you can see that little button that kind of looks like 3/4 of a circle. That's the ease of access button, where you could like change your contrast, turn on the magnifier to magnify parts of the screen. In the past, I've had customers that were vision impaired, that we've set up computer systems for them, and they do use that stuff quite a bit, or the narration that will come up and guide them through wherever their mouse is pointing. One person in particular was like a really good computer user, even though she was born blind. It's kind of interesting. Configuring your Windows 10 updates, they're automatic, come on by default, both retail editions. You can manually trigger updates after installation to make sure that you have them all before you actually start using the computer. But in general, they're pretty automatic. And Microsoft got really aggressive with wanting people to be updated. Although, I don't know, to me it seems like they come in much smaller packages now. It's not like, here's something to download that's going to take you 4 hours. It's more like 20 minutes here, 20 minutes there. Is that sentiment not shared?
No, it doesn't, it depends on your internet speed.
Okay, my internet speed is terrible, so I would think it would take me a longer time.
Mine takes like, ours takes like, an update for like, download like a update, like 3 minutes, 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
How fast is your internet speed?
like.
75.
Yeah, 75 megs. download.
75 megs? Where do you live? Space? In the dorms?
We have fidelity.
Wow.
You should get it.
I
Fidelity
get
is
3
higher.
on a great
Yeah, I highly
day.
recommend it. I wish I had that speed in my
This is
house.
what I get for living in Longview.
Yeah, basically.
Longview cable. And my bill just doubled. Yay.
You have AT&T?
No, I have Longview cable. They just started capping data at 500 gigs, which we fly through in 2 weeks. So we got rid of cable. Cable was expensive. We moved everything online. Then they started capping our data. Now it's as expensive as cable. What do you want from me?
Google Fiber.
I wish. I wish.
Right.
We have fiber at the business, and it's amazing. It's like 100 megs. It's completely insane. It's network communications. No, they ran it down Gilmer Road, and our shop's on Gilmer Road. That's why. But it's ridiculous. Like 100% uptime. It's amazing. Okay. So there were some things, we talked a little bit about guest editions last week. We kind of barely touched on it. There are features of Windows 10 that run better in a virtual machine environment if you have guest editions enabled. We're not going to have to do that in our labs because we're not really doing anything enough with it that the performance is so bad we need to change anything. But if you were going to, let's say you were on TSTC's IT team and you were trying to determine if all the apps that they use will work under Windows 10 before you recommended upgrading to the whole TSTC system, you would spend a lot of time in a Windows 10 virtual machine. And it would matter to you whether it worked correctly or not. So depending on the circumstance as to whether or not you would use integration services or guest additions to make that run a little bit better. In Hyper-V, that's where you would go insert integration services to set up disk. That just makes the VM run better with Windows 10 in it. You would remove unwanted software, of course, all the trial things that come up on the computer. Any kind of manufacturer's utilities, if you're not interested in those, for installing updates or things that are just advertisements, might want to be removed. If you want to find your software, you just look in that All Apps folder, and it will show you different folders and applications that you can access. One of the things I really like about Windows 10 is if I don't like an app, I can just right-click it and say uninstall. I don't have to go to Control Panel. I don't have to go find an uninstalled file. I don't have to go get Revo uninstaller and go find the exe so it can reverse everything it's done. I just right-click something and say uninstall.
Yep.
And I like that a lot.
So
You
if
can
Microsoft had a pre-installed app on here that was very small, would it be Microsoftware?
Anyway, you can back up the data and the system like we talked about with Windows 7 using the file history, making the images or the snapshots. That has been added back to Windows 10. You can back up to anywhere. The file history we talked about, that was in Windows 8. Under Update and Security, you can turn on your file history. You can also create a system image backup, which is my personal favorite. The snapshot of your system at that given time that you can always restore to if something goes awry. Some of the features in Windows 10. The Start menu that covers up a portion of the desktop, normally on the bottom left by default. You can still have a full screen startup menu if you're in tablet mode, just like originally the way the desktop was designed on Windows 8. Or you can have what's called Continuum, which is not just a fantastic John Mayer album. It is also, no fans. If a keyboard is attached, the on-screen keyboard does not appear, but as soon as it's detached, the on-screen keyboard is smart enough to go, oh, they need a keyboard to be able to type, and it will pop the keyboard up. If you've got one of the 2-in-1 computers that can function as a tab, like a Surface or something, then that's the perfect function for that.
Am I just rubbing off on you now?
Huh?
Am I just rubbing off on you now?
Maybe a little, maybe a little. Actually, I thought of the monitor thing like a week ago. I was just waiting on the time to use it. The tablet mode, you can open up the Action Center and it gives you this little quick chart of things you might want to enable or disable, like Bluetooth or Wi-Fi. You can turn on tablet mode to enable that continuum. And here's what tablet mode looks like. It just looks like what the app screen or the start screen looked like in Windows 8, but you can see for a tablet that might be preferable because you're not trying to tap in one little corner to get the start menu to come up and all that. You can enable tablet mode as a default. If you especially have a tablet, you might want to do that. So that's the first thing that comes up. Cortana is the smarter cousin of Siri for the Windows operating system.
No, it doesn't compete with Siri. It's
Huh?
a different environment.
It is different.
No.
That's why she said cousin, not
Ah.
sibling.
I said cousin.
Okay.
I was careful.
But Apple doesn't have that yet, so they can't compete with it.
Right, Siri looks for keywords, and you have to phrase things in a certain way for
Yeah.
Siri to understand it. Cortana is much more natural. So it can search for different things, it can learn different settings.
Yeah, it also learns based on your searches. It also learns for like, oh, you search this, or like interesting stuff if you're setting.
Right.
Yeah.
If you search one thing, it might remember that you
Yeah.
searched it, and then maybe change the context of the
Yeah,
search
see, our
later.
our computers are in the living area, so he has to be really careful about that.
Right, right. So you can talk to Cortana, you can click the microphone icon and speak to her to ask her things. Or you can just click into that and search. And I kind of just use that as a search of the whole computer, and it seems to work pretty well.
That's
So,
if you have
yeah.
a microphone.
yes, I do. I have a headset with a microphone.
I wish I had one.
Yeah.
Ha! Finally, something I have on my computer that you don't.
That's a cheap
It's a
one.
miracle.
I'm gonna get a webcam. We don't have a webcam.
Oh, I can get one too.
You can select what Cortana learns. So like in Notebook, you can tell Cortana the things you want her to know about you so she can use them, like maybe where you work, where you are, so they can detect weather and things like that for you. You can tell her interests. You can give Cortana logons for online services. Tell her your favorite TV show as much as you want her to know. Obviously, this raises some privacy red flags to me. But if you really, really wanted to customize Cortana, she could be your own little personal assistant. You can turn her on and off. You can add where you can just say, hey Cortana, and it's always listening, so it will respond to you. That's creepy too.
No, it's not.
And you can, again, configure all the things that
At
Cortana
least
learns
someone
about you.
listens to me.
Yeah, these ones are kind
You can go through your Bing settings so that Cortana can know different things about your online activities.
Cortana, never use
Again,
Bing.
privacy issues.
of.
Hey Cortana is the voice activation. It's not looking necessarily for keywords like weather. It might say, do I need to wear a sweater today? And it would understand that that meant you wanted to know what the weather was. It's a little bit more conversational. Using apps in Windows 10, they have a couple different things that they call. Previously in Windows 8, we called things modern apps. Now they're called universal. So universal runs on all devices that are supported by Windows 10, whether it's a PC, whether it's a tablet, whether it's a smartphone, the app is exactly the same across all those different locations. Where they call the legacy apps, which are running things as they did in a previous version of Windows, like 7, 8, or 8.1. Traditionally, that's an important note to make, and that's going to be a test question too, because normally when we refer to something as a legacy application, we're talking about like, you know, Windows XP, or like a really older operating system, Windows 95 even. But here they're referring it to anything that wasn't built for Windows 10. So that's a different terminology to get used to. Yeah, MS-DOS. Here's what the universal apps kind of look like. Whereas a traditional desktop app that runs in Windows 10, it's probably going to have a little bit more features to it and maybe not have to be so touch capable to work in all those different spots. Task view, you can view all the thumbnails of everything that's open by tapping that task view bar. It also shows you all the current virtual desktops. So for example, if you tap that, you can see every single different window that was open, and you could use that to bounce back and forth between windows. Virtual desktops, this is something really cool. Okay, apparently they had to make the point that this has been available in Mac OSs and Linux forever, but whatever. I think it's cool. It's called the virtual desktop. So you can have multiple desktops open and have them doing different things. So they're basically like a pre-made desktop. So one desktop is for when you want to do financial things. It has Quicken and Calculator and Excel or something. And then another one is
For
gaming, and one is for, it's got TeamSpeak open and your Steam client and Nexus Mod Manager, okay? So depending on which thing you want to do is which desktop you go to. I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
One has like Google Chrome or Firefox up so that you can just Google things. But they exist kind of in their own little environments.
Since this is actually something I haven't touched on, can you customize the background for each one of those?
I believe, yes, you can.
Awesome.
Yeah, and I think I'm gonna do this at home. I really like that.
This is actually something I didn't know about.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Well,
didn't know
I'm
about it
here.
either, and I don't even remember seeing any videos, or when they did the intro to Windows 10, they never mentioned it.
Right.
That is actually useful. I like that. The Windows Store is now a tile on the start menu. It looks like a little shopping bag with Windows symbol in it. You can get apps, services, games, music, movies, TVs there. You have to have an account, and you have to have a payment method. But you end up with your own little app store. And you can buy things like Microsoft Office there. It's not just like little games and little 99-cent things. You can buy legitimate software pieces there and install them. And that's saved on there, so if you need to reinstall it again, you don't have to fiddle with a disk or a key. And that's pretty neat. You can automatically update things in the store when they need to be updated. So since this is all Microsoft products, they have an Xbox integration that keeps your data in it. If you record game clips with the Xbox, they show up on your computer. That's cool. You can stream live TV to your Windows 10 PC from the Xbox. So that is the Xbox game bar. that
And
see
you can
there.
take Xbox games on PC, on Windows 10 too.
You can what?
Play games, Xbox One games on PC too. Windows
That's
10.
cool. I know that. That's cool. It also supports picture-in-picture, so you can stream TV while you're playing a game. That's really cool too, and then switch back and forth between the two.
Don't do that.
Nah.
Don't do
You'll
that.
probably die a lot in the game, but I mean, it's cool.
No,
Don't worry,
No.
I didn't die while I was recording.
it's just like a
You
little
can't prove
window.
Yeah, it's like it's a tiny window, but yeah.
That's why you use two desktops or two monitors.
Mhm. The user picture, that user tile at the top, you can go to change account settings and change your picture. Securing Windows 10. So if you just blindly upgraded Windows 10 and you didn't really check any of the things that it was asking about you, it might know some things about you that you maybe don't want it to know, especially with all the Cortana stuff. So these settings might be worth a once over. I was kind of surprised at all the liberties they were taking by making things automatically selected in the beginning. But you can go through and change those privacy options and see a lot of these are security settings that we've had in previous versions of Windows that are good, like Smart Screen, to make sure you're not downloading something malicious. But it does connect with a lot of different things. So that information is being shared back and forth a lot, and that's something to think about. Windows Hello is a biometric sign-in feature. You have to have some sort of scanner that will do this biometric recognition, so facial recognition, a fingerprint, or a scan of the iris of your eye if you're in, a top secret CIA facility.
Yeah.
Some of that might actually, like the fingerprint, might be integrated with the laptop, especially if it's like a business class laptop. So anytime biometrics are involved, remember there's a margin of error. So if the weather is cold, your fingers will shrink a little bit, so it might not be able to read the biometric feed. Sometimes for you guys, when you grow beards, you look like completely different people. When my husband shaves his beard, he looks like a 12-year-old. So sometimes the facial recognition will not pick him up. So just remember, always have a backup plan if you're going to go through biometrics, because it's not always perfect.
So that retina scanning thing,
Mhm.
so the CIA uses that?
No.
So that,
The
was that
CIA?
CIA?
Yeah. Oh, y'all, it's spreading. Okay. Microsoft Passport lets you sign into your network resources. The authentication is tied to the hardware on the computer, so it's not easily faked. That is kind of an up-and-coming thing that they're working on. These are just things on your local network, like the printer in the copy room, or a server where you access files. Windows Defender is still your free anti-spyware and anti-malware protection, but as soon as you go to put your own antivirus on, it's smart enough to turn itself off, which is kind of nice. We don't want more than one antivirus competing for our computer's attention, or something bad will happen.
I'm gonna clear your viruses. No, I'm gonna clear your viruses.
Yeah, and actually, no one does, and then you just have viruses. That's what happens. Windows Firewall, we still have Windows Firewall and Firewall with Advanced Security that we can make changes to. And here, that looks just about the same as it did in Windows 8, the control panel for that. And there is our list of allowed apps, so we can actually whitelist what apps are able to use our computer, which ones are not, or change, make them private or public, I should say, whether they're allowed. And then there's the firewall with advanced security, which we've had in all the other versions of Windows, which you can make little changes, inbound and outbound rules, and say certain things can't work and certain things can't. And that's just part of the operating system.